Hello, I thought we'd talk about Athames. So, this is Bob, and the reason I asked him to be in this video is because he made his own Athame, which is pretty cool. So, I say Athame.
And you say Athame.
Yes. So there are lots of different pronunciations of Athame that you can say, because nobody actually knows how it's pronounced. So you can say Athame, you can say Athame, you can say Athame.
Athame.
Athame, yes. If you say Athame, you've got to say it with a South London accent. It's compulsory. But anyway, there are many ways to say it because we don't actually know how it's pronounced. And so that's one thing. And then a lot of people have asked, what should an Athame look like? Because obviously the traditional thing is it's a black-handled knife, and some people say that it has to have edges down both sides, so a double-edged blade, and also that the blade has to be made of steel, because we talk about Athames of steel.
Mine's made of iron.
Yes. What's the difference between iron and steel?
Processing.
There you go. So there are many different materials that you can make your Athame out of. You can make a wooden Athame. You can make a crystal Athame if you wanted. You can make one with bone or antler. You could have a flint blade. You could have, lots of different materials that it could be made of. You could have bronze. So anything that's ever been used as a cutting edge type thing could be used for the blade, and anything that's sort of solid could be used for the handle. Generally speaking, people recommend against plastic, and that's because it's an artificial substance and it's been artificially created, so it's kind of magically inert. Traditionally, you didn't engrave any magical symbols on the handle, because you had to be able to wash them off and pretend it was a kitchen knife in case the Inquisition came round.
Well, actually, when I made mine, I did put something on the, what's it called, the tang,
Yeah.
inside the handle. There was something in there, which you can't see.
That's clever. I like that. The hidden aspects.
Yes, for the
That's
hidden
very
shoulder.
good. Yes. So, my Athame is a Sabatier boning knife, made by the French knife company. And yes, I deliberately chose the makers as a pun. And no, it's not double-edged. So, things that I would avoid in an Athame, I would avoid any knife that has been used to kill anyone, or any knife that was intended to be used to kill anyone or has been used for any sort of violent act, because you don't want to bring that into your magic particularly. And then the other thing is, obviously a lot of people these days buy their Athame off the internet, but you should test if you can, you should test the Athame, hold it in your hand and see if you can actually transmit energy through it, because that's a key factor. Kind of important, because that's what it's for. And personally, I don't care if the handle's brown or blue or whatever. And obviously the other thing is that allegedly the fair folk, or the fairies, the good people, don't like iron. So traditionally, if you were doing anything with the fair folk, you didn't bring iron into the circle.
Well, mine's made of band iron. I got a piece from a scrapyard, cut it the proper length. I actually got one that was fairly long, and got a piece that was sword length. Then I got a piece that was Athame length, and made the two from the same piece of iron. Shaped it by hand, used a hacksaw, and then I ground it down and polished it up, and the handle is ebony.
Nice.
With an oil finish on it. The only part that I didn't do was the arc welding, because I don't have an arc welder. I had somebody do it.
That's totally fair. I also have a beautiful flint-napped Athame, which I use for rituals where it the if we're out in the countryside, especially near burial mounds in the UK, or anywhere that there might be fair folk around that would be offended by iron, that's when I use my flint Athame.
Or for flying somewhere.
Yes, it's very useful if you're flying.
You don't want to have to explain to customs what that thing is in your suitcase.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, anything else that we wanted to share about Athames?
If you're stuck somewhere and you don't have one, you're never without your, well, generally you're never without your fingers.
That's
so
true.
you can use them as an Athame or an Athame.
As they used to say, fingers were made before forks. It's also true
Right.
that fingers were made before Athames.
But don't try that in a restaurant.
Probably not, no. However, that does bring me to the point of some people ask, well, why do you need magical tools, or why do you need an Athame at all? And for that, I would say that the tool makes the thing more effective. So if you're directing energy, the tool amplifies the energy and transforms it as you and focuses it. So if you think of it as like the Athame acts like a laser beam that focuses the magical energy into whatever you're trying to do.
And every time you use it, you're charging it up a little bit more and a little bit more. And after a while, it will have residual energy in it.
Yes, and that's why it's generally considered a breach of Wiccan etiquette to touch somebody else's Athame. So I think that's important too. Yeah. So
Okay.
you can have fancy ones with engraving on it or whatever else you want, but I think the main thing is that you feel an affinity to your Athame and that you can use it and direct energy through it, because that's the key thing. And it doesn't, if you want to be traditional, have a black handle, that's great, and if you don't, that's also fine.
And if you have the opportunity to make your own, you're putting your own energy into it as you're making it as well.
Yeah, and if you're not into arc welding and filing things down and that kind of stuff, you can always sew your own Athame scabbard, which is what I did.
Mm-hmm.
So I have, and so I have something personal that I made, because it was traditional, allegedly back in the day, for women to make scabbards, and then the scabbard, as you sewed the edge of the scabbard, you were meditating on the idea that the person whose scabbard it was wouldn't suffer from wounds, because you were stitching up the wounds magically as you stitched. So that's a nice idea. You thought it would magically prevent the sword from injuring the other guy, but anyway,
Yeah.
which would also be nice.
Yeah.
I'll just stab you a little bit.
Yeah.
So yes, and I think it's important to note for anybody watching this who doesn't know much about Wicca and witchcraft, that Athames are never used for actual physical cutting or other things you might do with a knife. They are purely for directing magical energy and casting
ceremony.
circles and used in ritual. Yes. So yeah, if you have any questions, put them down below in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel on YouTube, and follow me on Instagram, and have a nice day. Blessed be.